your thoughts create how you feel, which impacts how you act, which creates your results, right? Everything starts from your thoughts. So if you're in a fixed and closed mindset, again, you're going to be stuck. You're going to be stagnant. So in order to create more flow and energy and to take the actions you want, you have to change your fixed and closed mindsets to open mindsets, open beliefs, things that are focused on possibility, curiosity.
Welcome to today's episode of Influence by Design. Today we're going to talk about fulfillment and fulfillment specifically in what you do in the day to day. And I think that this is a really important conversation to have because whilst people that are in jobs, I find are often okay to say I'm unfulfilled or to leave a job to go find a new career. In business, I find that it gets pushed under the rug a little bit more, that there's a feeling that if we're employed and we're entrepreneurs, that we have to absolutely love every day and we've chosen this amazing life. And sometimes we keep this unfulfillment a little bit hidden. So today we're going to dive into that because it's such a big part of our lives. So I've invited Anne Benveniste to the show to chat to us about career fulfillment. So welcome, Anne.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tell us why people need to really listen to this conversation today.
Well, I think my whole business and what I'm about to walk you through, to me, this is really the fundamental components of career success and fulfillment. And by career, I mean whatever you choose to do to make money and make impact in your life. And when stuff isn't working, you can always fall back to the four concepts that I am going to take you through. And in fact, in my business, about 6 weeks ago, I was pretty burned out and frustrated with my business. And I came back to this model, and that helped me right the ship very quickly and get back into a place of flow. So yeah, that's why you should listen on.
Absolutely. How often do you speak with people that are unfulfilled, but they can't put their finger on what that feeling actually is, and they're not able to articulate what that unfulfillment is?
Yeah, I mean, all the time. I think that's very common to feel, if I'm understanding you correctly, or the way I would describe it is to feel like something's wrong and not working, but to not really be able to either articulate what exactly isn't working, or to not really be able to articulate what the answer is.
Mm.
Oftentimes people can say, I don't like this or that. This is annoying me. And that's easy to access. But the solution to that feels more difficult to grasp.
Mm. And a lot of times, just from what I've seen, not only is the solution difficult to grasp, but it's almost like it doesn't exist. Like there's just this feeling of I just don't know where to turn. I don't know, where to go. I don't know what's wrong with me. And there's a lot of kind of spinning on the spot of frustration.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are definitely phrases that sound familiar.
Yeah, I thought they might. So you've got four pillars that you have created.
Mhm.
What was the journey that you personally took that helps you to create these four pillars?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I built my career in marketing and brand strategy. And that for a long time, I was working at a big ad agency in London, and that was amazing. And I loved that for many years in my 20s until one day it stopped working the way it had. And that kind of persisted for a few years until I kind of realized this is not the long-term solution for me, but I really had no idea what it was. And in that moment, being kind of the overachiever that I was, I thought, well, this is not a good look. I can't not know what I'm doing. Let me quickly fix that and I'll go do an MBA, because a lot of people in my community have done that, not because I wanted to do the MBA, but because I thought I needed to. And so that took me on this whole journey going down these paths that just weren't interesting to me. I started at the MBA and I wasn't interested in much of what I was learning or the post MBA jobs. And the people weren't really my people. And it was a really bad fit. And then I ended up getting recruited into a tech job that again wasn't a good fit. And I was miserable in that job, very unhappy until I finally got fired. Right. And along the way, I had discovered coaching and I really felt excited by it, but I hadn't ever really given myself permission to do it, right? Because that felt hard and scary and I wasn't ready and not like a real career and too woo woo and a whole host of things. But getting fired forced me to say, well, this is actually the thing I like to do. And so in feeling so, and then this has become my career and I love it and I'm so energized by it. But in that moment, it was like, this is so right. Why did it take me so long and so many missteps to get here? Why couldn't I have gotten here faster? What could I have focused on to get me here faster? And that's basically where these four concepts have come from. It's basically the fundamental things to focus on when you reach these inflection points of what I'm doing is no longer working. How do I get into alignment? How do I get onto a path that's really an extension of who I am and how I want to live my life and spend my time? If you follow these four things, that's how you get back there as quickly as possible. So you don't do what I did and waste many years and lots of money doing things that do not light you up.
Yeah, life's too short, right? But you did
Totally.
say something there, and before we go into the four pillars, I want to dive into this a little bit because I find that through my coaching and through interviewing people on this show, there's always this moment where they've got their back against the wall and they're just like, I cannot take this anymore. And that's their pivot point. Do
Mm-hmm.
you believe that people need to be at that point before they can make change?
No, I just think that because people don't have these tools, they wait and wait and wait until it reaches this screaming, horrific moment. And that is the forcing function to make that change. But I don't think it needs to get to that point in order to change.
I
Um,
love that. So if you're listening now and you're feeling a little unfulfilled, you don't need to get to the point that you're feeling like it's all over. I have to burn everything to the ground. That you can take these principles and implement them into what you're doing now. And just rather than making a huge pivot, maybe it's just changing things up a little and looking in and distilling what you're doing so you don't have to burn everything to the ground, because you definitely don't. So let's start off with the first pillar, your brand. Tell us about what this encompasses.
yeah, I think I'd kind of like to maybe talk about all of this in the context of what I went through recently in my own business, because I think it'll really perhaps resonate with your audience who is entrepreneurs. So besides these four cornerstones, these four pillars, the other big concept that underpins my business is this idea that it takes less energy to be yourself, right? And when you really design your career around who you are, what you're interested in, and what matters to you, this is when you're going to thrive and have the most fun and create the most impact. So your brand is really about getting super clear on those elements. And the way I have people think about them or think about brand is really threefold. One, what are your strengths? What are the things that come so naturally to you? They don't really feel like work. That's kind of how you are. That's kind of the role that you have in a business, how you are adding value. Your role versus someone else's role, the actions that you're taking every day. Then you want to apply your strengths to the topics that interest you. Right? What is your brain like thinking about? What kind of problems does it like to solve? This is kind of the macro topics of your business, the problems that your business is solving, the products that you're creating, et cetera. And then, it's all well and good doing something that plays to your strengths and your interests. But if you're working, you know, 80-hour weeks or you aren't exercising, or you're not working with people that are important to you, that you are interested in, right, then it's not going to be a good fit. Or if you're not making enough money, right, to live the lifestyle you want, it's not going to be a good fit. So we combine strengths and interests with environmental priorities. And yes, those are the three components of brand. So when I was feeling burned out in my career recently, I really went through those three areas. With my clients, I take all of that together and we pull it, we get clear on the themes, and we put it into a tool called your North Star, and it becomes this like list of the things that you need. But generally, when I was feeling burned out about 6 weeks ago, I just thought to myself, well, what am I doing every day in my business, and what activities do I like and do I not like? Do I still like the topic that I'm focused on? And, what about the other bits and pieces around money and culture and schedule is working? I was able to see that, one, I was missing a strategic thought partner to help me think long term about my business. Two, I was doing too much content development. I'm a coach, right? And I love coaching, and that's great. And also I like writing, but I was just doing too much of it. Writing, I'm not a writer, right? And I was doing too much writing. So I realized, okay, actually, I probably need to hire a writer to support me with some of my content work. So things like that, when I started to actually think about where are my strengths versus what am I actually doing in my business, I was able to see where the gaps were, and therefore what I needed to do to start to fix the way I was feeling.
Mm, I love that so much. So you talked about the strengths, the things that come to you so easily that it's almost not like work as the
Yes.
first piece of this. Now, this is a really interesting piece because personally I found this really difficult to uncover in myself. And it's something that
Mm-hmm.
I find a lot of other people find difficult to uncover because
Mm-hmm.
often our gifts are so effortless, we don't
Mm-hmm.
even recognize them. What
Mm-hmm.
are some tips that you can speak to for people that are also feeling like that?
Yeah. I think, one, you can ask people that so people that you work with, or people that are, your friends and family, about, what am I good at? What would you not ask me to do? What was I born to do? Ask people those questions. I think also ask yourself, if I could just go and get paid to do anything every day, like if I could just be put into it doesn't have to be an actual job, like just pretend you could get paid for anything. What would you get to do every day? Like what would feel fun? For me, I am a coach as a person, right? Like the conversations I have with my clients are the ones that I just have with my friends and family, and people that I managed back when I was working. It's just like what I love to do, and now I get paid to do the thing that is just me. And that's
Mm,
basically the whole thing here. So yeah, asking other people in your life who can see you, asking yourself, if you got to paid to do anything, what would you get to do? Like how would you add value in a business? I would start with that.
mm, so good, so good. So that's the first pillar, your brand. I'm really super excited to hear about this second pillar, your people. Tell me about your people.
Okay, yeah. People are the lifeblood of your career, right? They guide you, they open doors. Often, the reason that people are stuck is because they're not having any conversations. Right? They're in their own little world. They're not asking for help. They're not asking for guidance. They're not getting enough support around them. They're trying to do everything themselves. And look, I mean, we are social beings that have thrived because of our ability to communicate and work together. And no one gets there alone, literally. No one, it's all comes from a team, right? Gathering a team around you of people who complement your strengths and weaknesses, because you're not good at everything. You're only good at a handful of things. And so you need other people on your side to help you. So, and a part of it is basically making a list of, like, what are your questions and fears and concerns? Like, what are your problems? And what are your questions and concerns and fears about them, and then go and finding people who can help you answer them. So for me, when I was feeling burned out in my business, I basically, I kind of had these ideas of types of support that I needed in my business. And I thought to myself, okay, well, who can help me find these types of people, or who can help me think through, are these the right types of people to ask, right? So I talked to some of my friends who are entrepreneurs. I talked to some of my friends who are connected to coaches and marketing people. Just and then I started having conversations. And the result of that is being introduced to tons of new people, making so many new connections, getting answers and new ideas, right? Things I hadn't even thought of before, because now I'm talking to people with different brains than me. And I got I got a free coaching session from one of my friends who's like an entrepreneur coach. Like I got tons of like extra added benefit that I wasn't even intentionally going out there for. So, and then just things start to energetically feel like you're in flow because you're talking to people and things start happening. When we're not talking to people, we're just in our own little bubble and things will feel static.
There's nothing worse than being in your office and having this conversation going on in your head that the only person you're talking to is yourself, and it can get really loud. And it's interesting. I was just chatting to my daughter on the phone last night. She lives in a different city, and we were talking about something that was unrelated to business. But she just said, Mum, she said, my memories of you when I was a kid were you of just speaking with everyone. She said you knew everyone. You were always surrounded by so many people. And we were just having a really funny conversation about that. She's like, my memories are we'd walk into the shopping centre and every second person would stop and say, Sam, how are you going? And she said that she has actually taken that into her career and understood what it does mean to have a network of people that you know, because you never know where the next connection is going to lead to. And I wasn't connected to those people to get the next connection. Like it's not something that you go out to get something, but being surrounded by people opens so many doors.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. A lot of times the reason people don't have conversations is because they feel like it's inappropriate to ask for their time, or it's inappropriate to ask questions. But if first of all, again, people love being spoken to and asked for advice because it flatters them and makes them feel like their hard-won wisdom can be shared. But two, if you have this perspective of just curiosity, of wanting to get to know people, seeing, for me, it was an opportunity to connect with a lot of people I hadn't connected with for a while, and also just learn about things that I'm trying to figure out. I'm not yet asking for anyone to do anything for me. I'm just trying to learn and connect. So if you come from a place of curiosity and
Mm.
genuine interest in other people, it makes the whole process easier.
I love that word curiosity. It's one of my favorite words because I think that that is one of the superpowers that we have. And if we can really embody curiosity, it's
Mhm.
amazing what can happen and what doors can open, not just with the people that we know, but in, what we do in every area of our life. So I love that. Talk to us about mindset. Most of us know that we need to have a good mindset, but talk to us a little bit more about what this means and what it can mean when our mindset's, I guess, a little bit wonky, is the way you described it before.
I like that word wonky. It's not an American word and it's a great one. So, my little phrase here is that when you're stuck in your career, you're often stuck in your mind. And as humans, we have a tendency towards negativity. Obviously, we've seen that in social media, and it's a protective mechanism. But often we can get ourselves into these fixed and closed mindsets about who we are and where our business is and what's possible for us. Things like it's not possible. When I was looking at my own mindset earlier this year, or earlier in at the end of July, I was in the space of I don't have enough time. This is really hard. I don't know how to do this. If this is too much work, I don't like this. And you can hear in those phrases, they're very fixed and closed mindset, right? They're not open. They're fixed, they're closed, they're definitive. And so what we want to do is change that. If you notice, and I'll explain how to figure it out, but if you notice you have fixed and closed mindsets, that your thoughts create how you feel, which impacts how you act, which creates your results, right? Everything starts from your thoughts. So if you're in a fixed and closed mindset, again, you're going to be stuck and you're going to be stagnant. So in order to create more flow and energy and to take the actions you want, you have to change your fixed and closed mindsets to open mindsets, open beliefs, right? Things that are focused on possibility, curiosity. So, I can figure out how to have more time. I can figure this out. This is the next step in my business journey. I can do hard things. I'm committed to making this happen, even if I'm not sure how to do it, right? You can see that those things are much more open and curious. And that would be kind of the antidote to where I was mentally. And what I did for that is I basically just, what was my problem, thinking about how I was feeling. And I just did a free write, for as long as I could until I didn't have anything more to say. And then I'm scanning my free write for my fixed and closed mindsets, things that are definitive and that keep me stuck. And then I'm looking at when I take those out, I'm looking at, okay, how could I think about this in a more expansive way? What could I be open to? And sometimes it has to be like, I'm practicing believing that I can create more time, or I'm open to believing that this could be easier than it seems, right? Sometimes you're not ready to be the opposite, but you have to, we always make better decisions from a more positive place. There's actually a very good TED talk about this. I'm blanking on his name at the moment, but the data behind it shows that we make poor business decisions when we're coming from a negative place. So
100%. That is why whenever I'm in a negative place, and we all get there, right? We're
mhm.
humans living a human experience. We can't be, joyful and happy all the time, because otherwise we don't appreciate, everything that goes on in our life. But I do notice for me, when I go into the place where I'm having a pity party, that I definitely will double down on gratitude. It's what am I grateful for in my life, and just really journaling all of that. And a couple of weeks ago I wasn't feeling great, and I even texted some people and went, I've just been sitting here and thinking how grateful I am for you being in my life. And I was very specific about certain things that they'd done, and not only did it completely turn me around instantly, but it made someone else's day, because they felt so valued. And that just completely changes the energy. And yeah, gratitude is one of the easiest ways to turn around the pity parties in our head.
Totally. Yeah, gratitude is an important one.
So talk to us about your time. This is the last pillar. And this is an interesting one, because 100% of the people that I speak with always say to me, and I'll say 100%, I don't have enough time.
The way I think about time for this pillar is kind of in two parts. One, it's about boundaries. We have, Malcolm Gladwell popularized in the early noughties this idea that it takes 10,000 hours of something to
Mm.
become an expert. And that stat comes from a study, and he didn't publish the whole study. And what's important for us to recognize is that those 10,000 hours, according to the study, can only be successfully realized if they're combined with 12,500 hours of deliberate downtime and 30,000 hours of sleep. Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That completely changes the thought of the study.
Yeah. So, you cannot rush your way to expertise. Right? And notice it's more deliberate downtime than work, and obviously much more sleep. So when I say boundaries, it's about making sure that you are carving out time for deliberate downtime and sleep, right, alongside your work, that you're really thinking intentionally about, when do I do my best work? What is the tasks I'm going to do in that time? And then what do I need to do outside of work to fill my tank, right? To fill my battery, right? Exercise, time with friends, drawing, some creative activities, whatever it is that makes you feel whole, that inspires you, that recharges you. That's what you need to be doing alongside of your work. And a lot of people just don't have the boundaries in place with themselves or with the people that they're working with in order to do that. So there's some intentionality there that's required in thinking about what are those activities, and then there's the boundaries.
Hmm.
The second part of this is I was a master procrastinator for a lot of my life, and so it's just about really planning your work intentionally, thinking about what do I need to get done, what are the steps to get there, and then I like to block all of that on my calendar. And again, thinking about, all right, well, I really have 5 hours to work today. I have deep thinking work in the morning. I have calls in the afternoon, whatever, and mapping that onto your to-do list in an effective way is something I do a lot of work around. So honestly, I present this one last, but on it, it's actually if this is bad for you, you actually have to start with time and boundaries.
Mm.
You have to have a full tank in order to do everything else.
You know what I love about this so much, is that I think, and I don't know, I think this is a conditioning from like maybe school or from when we're younger, that work is when we're actually sitting at a desk doing the thing, or, it's where we're actually, you know, using our skill set. And as entrepreneurs, innovation is a huge part of what we do. The process of refinement is a huge part of what we do. And the only way that we can come to the conclusion for these things is by taking time away. It's not sitting at a desk in front of the computer, it's actually being away from it. I heard this described as CEO time, and I talk about it all the time. It's that as the CEO of our business, we need to actually walk away and journal, or be in nature, or go for a walk, or go to the gym, or problem solve with other people, discuss things. That some of the things that we have thought in previous times that is the actual work isn't actually the work, that we need that time away to be able to move forward. And I don't think that this is talked about enough.
Mm. Again, so while I was in this whole like I'm burned out, I hate my business phase at the end of July, one of the things I got from networking, talking to people was I got this free-ish coaching session from an acquaintance of mine. She's like a business coach. One of the things that she told me, her name's Catherine Campbell Hurst. One of the things that she told me was like, think about your business like you're an artist, right? Like you're a creative person, right? When you're running a business, there's a lot of creative energy. And this is what you're kind of saying is like CEO energy, but like it's creative energy. And you need that writer's retreat. You need that time away, in nature to reset, to think creatively about what you want. This is why we get our best ideas like in the shower, on a walk.
Mm.
It's like they're not going to happen. Like the desk is for executing, it's not for ideating. And you need to create this spaciousness in an inspiring or space that's comforting in order to do that other part of the job.
I love that so much. There's a book called Create Like an Artist. And
Mm.
for the life of me, I'm sitting here. I know it's behind me, and I'm not going to turn around at this second. And I can't remember who it's written by, but I'm going to link it up in the show notes because it is such a great book. And as someone who, I'm a creative, my first business was owning a dance studio. I was a choreographer. I would design costumes. I would come up with lesson plans, all these things. So, I was in this creative zone all the time. And I never for once, when I was in dancing, thought I wasn't working when I was creating. Yet when I moved into coaching, that perspective changed. And it took me a little bit to go, I need to get back to that more, creative side. And to know that when I'm out and just like, what could that look like? Getting back to that curiosity you were talking about before, what could this look like? What could this be? Just imagining and taking time out, that's when the magic happens.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, so important. And as a creative person, you know how that works.
Yeah. But we're all, like I said, humans having a human experience. Every now and again, we all get tripped up, right? And that's why this conversation's important, just to bring that focus back and say, all right, well, what could we do now to bring that fulfillment back into our lives? And I say back because that's where everyone starts when they start a business. It's
Mm-hmm.
this passion and, I'm here to do big things, and, a really deep purpose to do what we're doing. So it's really important to come back and, if we're feeling unfulfilled, to say, all right, well, which of these pillars do I need to spend some time on? So,
Mm.
and I've loved the way that you've packaged this up. For people that have been listening and want to stay connected with you, how can they do that?
I post frequently on LinkedIn. You can find me there, or my website is www.thecareer.studio. And I also have a podcast called The Career Studio, which talks about all this stuff. So between those three places, you can find me.
Love it. And of course, we'll link all of that up in the show notes over at influencebydesignpodcast.com. And thanks so much for coming today and having this conversation with us. I've absolutely loved it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure, Samantha.